Thank you, Mr. Williams, and a pleasant good afternoon to all. Mr. Williams, I too want to use this opportunity to encourage our citizens, residents, to support the National Housing and Census, Population and Housing Census activities. They are very important for the National Emergency Management Agency or National Disaster Management Framework. It will help us with our preparedness. It will help us with our response for specific areas. It will also identify for us areas for the vulnerable according to various demographic groups. And it will help us with our distribution process as well as our business continuity planning in the event that we are impacted by a major emergency. So again, please do your best to support the census operations and activities, cooperate. It's something that, again, will be down to the benefit of you, the citizens, and the country by extension. And also, Mr. Williams, to start on a light note, we realize we have a new podium, so I was so elated that we didn't have to use the step up for us to make presentations. So, I realized that we have gotten a little taller. So we welcome this bittersweet moment whereby we are closing off. I can recall approximately 2 years and some time ago, I heard about the new CMO, Dr. Hazel Laws. I didn't know her. She would have made a presentation at our small Adventist Spanish church because we both share the same religion. And then I'm told that, yes, Dr. Wilkinson, we share the same religion. Right, so, yeah. Denomination. So, when we saw the pandemic happening in China, I would have reached out to Dr. Laws and said, as the National Disaster Coordinator, I would like to meet with you regarding this potential risk that is existing. And we met very early. We began discussions with SEDEMA very early. We began discussion with CAFA very early. I remember Mr. Brian Dyer and myself would have actually mobilized SEDEMA to have a regional meeting so that we could have gotten a presentation by CAFA. And in that meeting, Mr. Dyer and myself were labeled alarmist because we were told that it's not going to reach in our area, it was too far. Then we told the facilitator from CAFA then that globalization has brought countries closer rather than keeping them far apart. There was a lot of back and forth, but eventually, a few months down the line, they saw that what we were talking about when we started to get a number of Chinese residents and citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis returning from their celebrations in China. In that instance, we started to mobilize and we started to move, and we started with a small group where our focus was mainly on borders. We started with our border management. We started to look at the border surveillance, and then we started to prepare for the inevitable. If you could remember, some of you, the slogan that started with CMO Dr. Hazel Laws would have stated it's not a matter of if, but a matter of when, and that's the motto that we applied. The other motto that we applied was the art of society approach. And then we saw what happened with the art of society approach. I don't know if you all recall our cities, our residents come together in this response. We would have had Mr. Theodore Prince Brown. I don't know if you all remember Mr. Brown, work at Customs. He was the first person to reach here to the NEOC briefings, and he would have made his first donation to the cause of 1,000 EC dollars. From there on, we got all sorts of donations where we got cake with our pictures on it. I mean, these things really motivated us. They pushed us to go above and beyond the call of duty. So, we were supported by you, and that's why Dr. Wilkinson and Dr. Laws would have used, and also Superintendent Henry would have used the opportunity to thank you, the general public. I don't want to be repetitious. I want to bring a different spin to it. So CMO would have spoken about the first wave, second wave, third wave, and this fourth wave. You all remember when we started with the infodemic. That's the first thing we had, an infodemic. Every minute we used to get a call. The first case reach it, ain't reach it, he don't reach it. We hiding it, we ain't hiding it. And all we did is remain focused and basically start to fight another pandemic, another crisis, which was the infodemic. You hear oftentimes, Lessor would have come there and talk about disinformation, misinformation in his eloquent way. Right? And we fought that, and we would have had Dr. Wilkinson. Trust me, Dr. Wilkinson, boy, I learned to admire you and love you. I never really knew you before COVID. I heard about you, but I never knew you. And, you taught me a lot within these past 2 years, The CMO as well, she can go inches if you really get her to that point. It was a good family approach that we had. So we start with the public awareness and sensitization on COVID-19 situation. And we started with the risk communication, which is these briefings. And that is what helped us to fight the infodemic. So eventually we saw all this misinformation, disinformation started to subside. And then you, the general public, helped us by focusing on the briefings. Them times you have 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 persons watching the briefings. Everybody was interested. Everybody put their hands on deck, and we were on board on the same train. And then started that first briefing. And that first briefing was simple. We took the cameras, we took everything, ZIZ came, and it was a simple table. From there on, we started and we modernized it to what we have today. You see, we have the nice background, speaking about the corona, telling you who are the teams involved, Ministry of Health, NEMO, and others. So we started that process. We decided that we needed to enhance the process to be more inclusive. Here came Ms. Jacob. Ms. Jacob came and she hand signals and she came with everything and sign language. Ms. Jacob don't watch me, so. And we had fun, so it became a family, so everybody, I remember one time Ms. Jacob probably made a little something, I don't know if it was a mistake, and I tell you, the general public let us have it through social media. So these were fun things, it was fun. At times it was challenging, but we had fun in serving you for the past 2 years. And I think we did an excellent job in remaining focused among the adversity that we also face. To the critics, we also welcome you. You were part of the process. The only thing is that some of you would have gone a little too far in terms of that. And, that was not welcome. I don't think that is what we really wanted in a time of crisis. So I hope that all of us have learned our lessons in terms of how far we can take things. I know we see the situation what happened with Will Smith and Chris Rock. And, everybody has emotions. So I'm hoping that critics going forward, you will somewhat sharpen and somewhat mold your way of engaging, because your critique also help us in the fight. You open our eyes to many things. That was important. Over time, as I said, the technology increased. John James came on board and he brought some technology to us. And then what changed and transpired, everything with the technology and the presentation, was when we started that all-of-society approach, when we had different stakeholders coming and making presentation, and Ms. Patricia Walters, the CEO of the cable, actually was the first presenter that we had who made a presentation using slides. And from there on, everybody wanted slides. That was the in thing. Everybody wanted the presentation and the slide. The only person who ain't used no slide, guess who? Superintendent Henry. Never used a slide yet that I can recall. Always reading. Because you see the voice that he has, he projected, when you say, he gave that monotone that, gave authority. Right, Superintendent? So in the first wave, let's look at the first wave. So we had the confirmation of the 2 cases, but everybody calling. I remember getting calls. CMO and I were making a presentation at Public Works, to the Public Works, the Ministry of Public Works, and we got about 20 calls before we could start our presentation. We hear it here yet. It's in Sandy Point. It's in Tabernacle. It's in Molineux. It was over Frigate Bay. Some people just come in on a boat. I'm telling you, it was crazy. Then on March 30th, as was stated, we had the EOC activated. Then what I love is how the general public, the general public, got involved in the state of emergency. The general public kept us on our toes with the regulations. If the regulations did not come out on the night prior to the expiration, the night of it expiring, by the next morning, the general public, we start an infodemic. Where is the regulation? Does it mean it is over? So, you know, these are the things that kept us going and make sure that we had everything in place, you know, because you lost some of your civil liberties. But actually, you were our watchdog to make sure that we stayed on our toes. Then we looked at the challenges with accessing essential goods. Remember the long lines and at the supermarkets, the challenges with the supermarkets. We go into the night, curfews. The curfew started. Fellows trying to get over to the girlfriend, and Superintendent Henry had to run behind them to send them back home. You know, these are some of the things that, you know, we have gone through that now we could look at it and, you know, learn from it, but also have a little laugh, because some things are just, you know, you could have a little smile from. Then we look at the emergency relief fund that was established, and as I said before, Theodore Prince Brown was the first person to come up here and give his contribution, and he sparked off that particular response. We then expanded our team. We look at the establishing of the compliance task force. We look at things such as reopening sectors. We strengthen our border management and port health surveillance. And guess what? In 2020, what did we have? Some major activities. General elections. We prepared for the general elections. Those activities we gave guidance, and then we moved on from general elections and continued the fight. Then we introduced the online immigration and customs form. And what would happen then is that persons had some challenges, and why do I have to fill out a form? Why do I have to do this? But it was a critical tool. What we simply did is we introduced e-commerce. You realize that we said we had to go touchless. And I was in a meeting today where I had a presentation by a gentleman from New Jersey to the CDMO member states. And he spoke about e-commerce, you know, taking forms and putting them on e-platform. And everybody remember we had the online entry form, the KNA travel form.kn. So thanks to the IT department and Ophelia and the team that basically took our concept, and they actually brought it to reality. So no longer you have to follow the immigration and customs form and walk with it in your passport. We don't need that. You completed it, and you walked up to the immigration port health, and you were processed. Yes, the process was a bit slow because it was something new. So, you know, we used trial and error. But eventually, we warmed up to it. We used to get complaints every day. Then everything started to subside as we, you know, gradually made it better. And today, you hardly hear anything about the entry process. So we learned lessons from these things. Then again, we had the reopening of the borders. You remember the virtual Culturama? Abonati, kudos to you and your team. We had a massive virtual Culturama. And then behind that came the National Carnival Committee, say, hey, listen, we could carry out a virtual carnival. And they said it's one of the best carnival they had in a long time. You know, I think they could say jam where you are and everything else. But then we moved on to 2021 where things got better. Do you remember something that we facilitated that brought attention to the country? We facilitated the below deck. The below deck came January to April 2021, and is a reality series. This took place at the Christoph Harbor. They stayed over at the Southeast Peninsula. We were able to create a bubble for them, and I am happy to say not one case, let me say it again, not one case came out of that activity from January to April. And I think if you look on Bravo, channel Bravo, you will see the series actually playing out. I was happy, I was proud to see St. Kitts being displayed. You would have seen Christopher Harbour. You've seen a lot of areas over at the peninsula. You would have seen other areas of St. Kitts and Nevis and the global market, international market. So I'm proud of the team that were able to put this together and support it, in particular, the cabinet of ministers. Then we had MSR Media, who would have stated to us, listen, based on the work that was done in St. Kitts and Nevis in managing the pandemic and the reputation we built in the Caribbean region as one of the countries, small island state that best managed the pandemic, they decided to come to St. Kitts and Nevis to basically do their filming and produce films. And we have seen that they have produced a number of films. I remember in the early discussions with them, they wanted to go to Barbados. The thing was to go to Barbados. They were leaning towards Barbados, but when they looked at what we have done in St. Kitts and Nevis, they said, hey, listen, this is a great place to come and make this investment. And this kudos to all the team, in particular you, the general public. Then we move on to the next wave, which is the second wave. And then, we saw the COVID testing in schools, the increase in cases in the schools, the shift system in the schools. Then we see how the public and private sector was severely impacted. Then we moved on to wave 3. In the wave 3, we saw that the vaccination process for the schools started, the challenges in the reopening of the cruise and the hotel sector, because everybody didn't like the restrictions, but eventually everybody warmed up to it, everybody understood, and today we have a resilient tourism product here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Equally so, we continued with the easing of restrictions on entertainment, and yes, the entertainment was one of the sectors that farms. You cannot expect to have such a large national response and not have persons oppose things. These are natural things. These are things that are welcome. We are not going to be engaging in a back and forth. We have to accept those criticism and learn from them, pull out what we need to learn from, and other things you just have to let it go to the waste bin. Then we saw the hosting of the National Carnival 2021. Everybody remember? Bubble Juve for the vaccinated, fully vaccinated. And then here came Omicron, wave 4. Then what we decided to do, say, hey, listen, we help you. We have fought 3 major waves. You went and you had your Juve, you had your fun, fully vaccinated. We had Omicron, we have wave 4. Yeah, we saw an increase in cases, and then eventually we saw things to start to subside. As things started to subside, then what we decided that it's time to hand the responsibility over to you, the general public. And that is why we are seeing the many easing of restrictions. So now that we carried the burden for you for 4 major waves, this wave, we handed over the responsibility to you. So you saw the fencing at Posante come down. You saw a number of restrictions come down. You see this, as Dr. Wilkinson said, you see all these social activities that are happening. And eventually, up to today, I've been having some discussion with some persons where they are so happy now that the rapid antigen tests, which now may be $30, $40 as opposed to paying $150, $200 for a PCR test, will be accepted. I think that is highly commendable. And I want to thank everyone for their patience. We had to be guided by our medical experts, following the science, studying the various practices globally, not just in the Caribbean. So Dr. Laws and Dr. Wilkinson were charged with making sure that they go do the research, and they will come and advise. And when they advise, we gave our logistical input to what they are saying, how we could implement, how we could look at this. And then what happens, which you don't understand, is that the power is not in Dr. Wilkinson, Dr. Laws, and myself, Commissioner Brandy, to just decide, yes, that's going to happen like that. No. After we meet, we have to package that information, and we go to cabinet. We were going to cabinet every Monday. Every Monday, cabinet would then make a decision whether they accept the recommendation, or sometimes cabinet will say to us, well, go back, do some further research, and then come back to us with a reviewed position, and then they will deliberate and give us the outcome of their deliberation. That's how the process functions, and that's why I too want to concur with Dr. Wilkinson in terms of the astute leadership that was provided by the Honorable Dr. Timothy Harris during this time, and the other cabinet members, the entire cabinet. But in particular, I want to highlight two ministers who basically gave of their time and sacrifice. The Honorable Attorney General, Mr. Vincent Byron Jr., who I see personally as a father figure based on the relationship that we have developed over the years as the chair of the Disaster Mitigation Council. And I say that publicly because of how close a friendship we have and bond we have built outside of work, where I can go by glory and get my glass of passion fruit juice. CMO used to give me lime. I also want to highlight Minister Wendy Phipps, who is the co-chair of the Disaster Mitigation Council, who have come like a big sister to me, inside and outside of work, and who is actually here every time we had a briefing, in particular when we had them every day. If you don't know, Minister Phipps, we share passion because my mother is ill. She too is taking care of her bedridden, ill mother. And, you know, to be here every day serving the general public, we ain't getting an extra cent, we ain't getting nothing, just for the sake of service to country. I think that's highly commendable. You cannot want a sacrifice like that from any human being in any country. So I really want to highlight their sacrifice and contribution to our response to this pandemic. Then the music festival committee came and said, hey, listen, everything happening, we think we could have this happen. And we looked at it, we got the recommendations, everybody get the input, we have the security forces. When you hear Henry give his talk, you know what I mean? You listen, he commands that respect. And then you have CMO who will put on a couple inches and then give and then we have Dr. Wilkinson, he's a surgeon, straight. You understand what I'm saying? So we had so much diverse expertise on hand that they were able to provide us with proper guidance for us to be able to serve you and serve you well. So the music festival is going to be hosted from the 23rd to the 25th of June, 2022, with over 5,000 patrons each night, 5,000 to 6,000 patrons each night. We are hopeful that this can be a success as we demonstrate to the world that we are ready to return to that sense of normalcy. I want to take this opportunity, after basically blabbing so much, to give a multi-sectorial approach, because let me just say, we experience some great things and we experience some bad things. But all in all, one of the things I want to thank the team for is their respect and their loyalty to service to country. Yes, we had differences of opinions. Yes, we had differences in the way we did things. But one thing I want to commend them for is that we stuck together, we kept it behind closed doors, and we made sure that at the end of the day, when we come before you with a united front so that you could be confident of what we were doing. That was very important for me. That was a lesson learned for me in terms of group dynamics, team dynamics. And it's important for our young leaders that are coming up, for them to see that, hey, historically, I don't know, I've never been through a pandemic, I don't know if I will live to see another one, but they can see how different professionals came together in a multi-sectorial approach, and they were able to guide a country. They were able to guide a country through a crisis like none of us have experienced since, if you're not over 110 years old. So again, I want to basically encourage the young leaders, the young teams, and others to see how working in a united way can bring success to a nation. We also saw the experience of the first female president of the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Ms. Giselle Matthews. That was historic as well, and we want to commend them. So I take this opportunity to commend the cabinet. Again, the astute leadership of the Prime Minister, accessible. We used to have to wake him up 3 o'clock in the morning when we need to, accessible. The fact his involvement in making sure that he listens. He never once said, go this way, go that way. He listened and he listened and he listened, and he gave word of advice for us to be able to continue doing our work. Again, the other members of cabinet that listened, Premier Mark Brantley and others, who also were engaged, because we took a federal approach. This was not a St. Kitts thing or Nevis thing. We worked together. I want to thank the members of the National COVID-19 Task Force, the public sector, the permanent secretaries. Yes, I called you out. I remember that very well, but it's because we wanted to bring that level of attention to you so that you can come on board with all hands on deck approach. The Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Commerce, private sector, the tourism authority, tourism sector, the various media houses, the NGOs, hoteliers, and I want to pause at the hoteliers because they did a wonderful job in the tourism sector. They helped us a lot with our corridor of containment. Taxi operators, they were critical. Those taxi operators who went and got vaccinated, who did the petitions with their taxis and did everything. You see some nice creative things. You see some guys did some nice creative labels and so on. And, we were able to work with them well to maintain the corridor of containment. We also, the hoteliers, I want to thank Miss Anna McNutt for the Marriott Hotel. We want to Mr. Mark Schneider at Park Hyatt. We want to thank Ruby Garcia and Henry Thomas. I hope I have the name correct. Yvette, don't kill me. We also want to thank Darren Thompson from Royal St. Kitts Hotel. We also want to thank Denise Wilson there at Ocean's Edge. We also want to thank Timothy Beach Resort. Timothy Beach Resort. First we had Mr. Boone, and then from Mr. Boone we had Shelder. Yes, Shelder. Lord Shelder, don't kill me. We also had, Seymour, help me out here, Claudia Sanchez. Yes, Claudia, don't kill me. That's where the bald head come from, yeah? Claudia at Marriott Vacation Club. So we had, for those on Nevis that I cannot remember all of you, my apologies, but we had a wonderful relationship and we had wonderful support from you. Without you, a number of initiatives, people may not know that you, for example, the vacation in place terminology came from Mr. Mark Schneider at Park Hyatt. When we were meeting with the hoteliers, he said, hey, listen, let us do a vacation in place, and the vacation in place can happen so and so on. So, no, to those critics who said that we don't listen and we don't this, actually we were being driven by the experts in the different sectors. And all we did is put our spin. The security forces gave the recommendation. The medical team gave the recommendation. We gave the recommendation. And collectively, we developed protocols for these areas. So no, we didn't just enforce them on it. It was a consultative approach. I want to also thank the security forces. We could not have done it without the police, without the defense force, and also private security. How many of you remember having to pay for private security to make sure you're outside your house and you don't come out, right? So we want to thank them. The Compliance Task Force, Ministry of Health, NEMA staff, NDMD staff, SCASPA, NASPA, National Security on a whole, Immigration Department, Customs, Excise, and also SKNIS and Mr. Leslie Williams. How could we forget Mr. Williams? My partner, Mr. Williams. So I also want to take this opportunity to basically highlight the members of the National COVID-19 Task Force before we end. We have the Honorable Vincent Byron Jr., who is the Attorney General and the Chair of the Mitigation Council. Honorable Wendy Phipps, Minister of International Trade et al., and who is the co-chair of the Mitigation Council. Abdias Samuel, who is the chair of the task force. Dr. Hazel Laws, who is the chair of the NEOC and the co-chair of the task force. Dr. Cameron Wilkinson, medical chief of staff. Mr. Hilroy Brandy, Commissioner of Police, Mr. Anthony Comrie, Commander of the Defense Force, Ms. Marceline Hughes, Chief Immigration Officer, Ms. Lonlia Archibald, Senior System Controller of Customs, Ms. Kebas, Permanent Secretary within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ophelia Blanchard, ICT Development Coordinator, E-Government, Cromwell Henry, Superintendent of Police, Mr. Leslie William, Director General, SKNIS, Mr. Travis Rogers, Superintendent of Police, Mr. Kennedy De Silva, Head of Compliance Task Force, Mr. Rohan Walters, Legal Researcher, Law Commission, Ms. Raquel Brown. Raquel, we miss you. Former CEO, St. Kitts Tourism Authority. Trust me, one great character to deal with. Dr. Judy Nisbet, Medical Officer of Health and NEVIS, and Mr. Brian Dyer, Director, National Disaster Management Department and NEVIS, Mr. Michael Manners, NEVIS Air and Seaport Authority, Ms. Jacqueline Brown, Deputy Chief Immigration Officer, Ms. Kenisha Williams, Administrative Officer, Mr. Jusan Gordon, Administrative Officer, Mr. Denzel Don James, we miss you, former CEO of SCASPA, Mr. Walter Andrew Bass, he was the Deputy Commander of the St. Kitts Nevis Defense Force, Mr. Bass, and also Mr. Ivor Keith Phillip, who is the President CEO of SCASPA. I would like to extend to you our deepest gratitude to all donors during the period of the NEOC briefings, and you know who you are. I want to thank everyone who have supported it. But most importantly, for these briefings, I want to thank Mr. Leslie Williams. I know some of you complain, oh, Leslie don't read me questions. Leslie dismisses, I don't like how Leslie dealt with my questions. Leslie Williams is Leslie Williams. Okay, we loved him we love him that way, and we will continue to love him that way. I want to thank Dr. Hazel Laws. I wish I had the little step so I could have seen, because many of you have asked me what it is that Dr. Laws steps up on. Mr. Williams, you could share the steps for me, please. I'm going to show you. So, Dr. Laws, we had to get this special step because somebody stated. Thank you very much. That's the special step we had for Dr. Laws. So Dr. Laws had a special step. I want to thank Miss Christmas Jacob. Miss Christmas Jacob, you remember, I wonder if you're going to say it with your hands now. You remember when you, whatever it was, you made everybody call, talk to the lady with the sign language, right? Well, you ain't saying it. Right. Right. So we had some fun with Miss Jacob. I want to thank Lejon James, my technician here at NEMO. He started from zero. Now he's actually running the programming with AJ. I also want to thank AJ. AJ makes sure that he stayed consistent to make sure that the programming was on point. I want to thank Dr. Marisa Cathy. Dr. Cathy works with the team at Health Promotion Unit to make sure that Dr. Laws or Dr. Wilkinson, when he was acting, had his presentation and data, ready to present it to you, the general public. Because this data don't stay here in St. Kitts and Nevis. This data goes worldwide. I've had persons in the UK, I had persons in the United States of America actually sending the infographic and say, you sure this is correct? We've been following, and persons will pull a whole month of cards and say, we've been monitoring, and we have the counts. People were actually counting. John James, he was the man behind the technology. I want to thank you, John James. There was a famous line I remember saying, John James, load it up. And James, boy, sorry that them girls took it the wrong way. My apologies to you, Mr. James. I want to thank Miss Ophelia Blanchard, who is always here. So you see the lot of ICT and the transformation, the digital transformation that is happening. That is all Miss Blanchard and her team. But I come into it. I come into the Calypso, right? I was hoping to have it on board. AJ, pull up that Calypso to the end. We have to play to close off the show, right? Then we had Vesta Southwell, who was with us, But then she left, and then we had Michelle, who came in with a nice voice. Michelle is not my cousin. Michelle, I am a Samuel. Michelle is Rodriguez. She's with a Q. In Spanish, we use the G, Rodriguez. So, people, she's French, I am Spanish. So she's not my cousin, okay? Right. So Michelle, thank you for all what you have done. Tell me who will miss Superintendent Henry. He come here with that thing, but he forget the glasses. We will never forget him. We built some strong relationships. And again, Dr. Wilkinson, and when Dr. Wilkinson coming up, right? Dr. Wilkinson had a thing. Do you know when Dr. Wilkinson coming to be a surgeon? He has a thing that when he walking up, once you see him fix his tie 3 times, surgery coming. Surgery was coming, yeah? And Dr. Laws had a way, when you see Dr. Laws going to grow inches, she would say, ah. Once we hear that, we know that, she need the step. She won't just go the inches. It was fun. I think we had a great time together. Please remain vigilant. It's not over. We want to continue to work behind the lines. However, I must end by saying that we went through a critical crisis in our lifetime. I want to thank everyone. But I must say to you, yes, I came to St. Kitts back in 1987, 88, somewhere. A little boy. Mr. actually taught me in junior high. Remember, it was junior high, it wasn't washy. We had to go from grade 6 to junior high, first and second form. And if you're in the good, you stay third form up there. Mr. Phipps taught me maths. And St. Kitts provided an opportunity for me as a young man of a different ethnic background. Attacking me for being of a different ethnic background to you, at first it can be demoralizing, and that was in my early stages. But now, I'm actually proud that I being of a different ethnic background, can contribute to the country. I remember I wanted to be a policeman first, and I went by the police station by a farm, and by the policewoman handled me so rough. I said, well, not me, I want. And then eventually, when the fire department was breaking off, we joined. But guess what? When we joined the fire department, we were still under the police. It was Commissioner from Nevis, Foy, Mr. Commissioner Foy. Henry used to kill me in pity. Henry used to be fit now, he ain't fit now. He used to be fit, have us running up and down the place and, doing different things. And that provided a good opportunity for all of us where, we grow. I was proud to say that October of this year is going to make me 23 years, because we joined in 1999, 23 years of service to this federation. I had many opportunities to go overseas and live, but I just fell in love with the tranquility and the peace that we have here in St. Kitts and Nevis. So to those of you who keep continuously attacking some persons of different ethnic background to you, all you're doing is strengthening us. Yes, I am not from here. That's public knowledge. But guess what? I know I am a contributing citizen of this country, and I will continue to do so with distinction and good grace and honor. To our leaders, I have to say thank you, because we couldn't do it. I remember boasting off in one of our national disasters regional meeting where I said to the guys, we have one of the best cabinet in the world, because sometimes we needed to, when we brief in the PM, Dr. Timothy Harris, he will say, well, he will ask, he likes to ask, well, what is the practice in other countries? What is doing done? And I could have taken up my phone, being right there, and call one of my colleagues, and, allow them to interact with the Prime Minister. I mean, they will call me later and they say, Mr. Abdias, you really was able to get the Prime Minister to talk to me? Because, you don't really get that opportunity. And that's, to me, that touched the core of my heart to know that our Prime Minister was able to come down to these levels and be able to even speak with my colleagues throughout the region so that we could actually learn from them their practices, and then we can analyze and have decisions and make decisions. I think that was critical, that was important. I could also recall being able to call all the ministers of government and address them with concerns related to their ministries and our response. And they all gave their efforts to support our response. So again, we are appealing to everyone to continue this togetherness until we get the all clear from Dr. Laws that we are no longer, and Dr. Wilkinson, listen, we no longer have to wear masks, we no longer have to have these protocols. Now, what are we going to do about the traveling, the travel farm? Some of you are saying, oh, when are we going to remove the travel farm? When are we going to do this? We have had recommendations, let me just say to you, from the border agencies, for example, Immigration and Customs, who has stated that they want the electronic form to remain. What we have advised Cabinet is that we want to move it from the approval process to a facilitatory process, where what you will be doing is uploading immigration and customs card rather than writing up the paper, and you will just have it there electronically. So when you arrive or you land in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, it will be a seamless process rather than you be worrying about paper and everything else. So eventually, yes, you complete the form, you get a barcode, a number, and you show it at the agent, by the agent's desk. If you don't have it, if you arrive with it, then we put you in the welcome center, you complete the form, and then you are processed. So eventually, we are going to get there, and we are hopeful that we could get there in the near future. But for us to get there, we have to work together. We have to remain strong and together to ensure that we maintain resiliency here in St. Kitts and Nevis. My colleagues, thank you very much. We're going to miss this. It's a bittersweet moment, but we have to move on. So, Mr. Williams, thanks to you, thanks to everybody. Thank you, the general public, for all that you have done to make our response and recovery process a success. See you soon.